All right, it is 7 o'clock. Leading the news this hour, geopolitical analyst Geoffrey Miller says there's likely to be a doubling down by both sides of the conflict before the situation improves.
Israel and the United States will be determined to do as much damage as they can from the air, to destroy as many possible air defense sites, to destroy as much infrastructure as they can before this war does end up in a ceasefire phase.
Welcome back to Breakfast. It is 7:30, time for the news. Footage of damage. A geopolitical analyst says the death of Iran's supreme leader doesn't guarantee a change to the Iranian regime.
Donald Trump has called for regime change, but he's not really going to, I think, provide the means for that to happen. We could end up simply with an Iranian regime that is weakened to a degree by these airstrikes. So these airstrikes will be doing real damage to Iran's military infrastructure.
3 American service members have been killed and 5 seriously injured as Iran, Israel and the US continue to launch missile strikes. It follows the death of Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. The attacks come just days after Iran and the United States wrapped up their 3rd round of high-stakes nuclear talks in Geneva, talks that were described as serious and making progress at some point, but without a deal. For more on the situation, geopolitical analyst Geoffrey Miller joins us now. Good morning to you, Geoffrey. Obviously, huge escalation over the weekend. Multiple countries have now been involved in these retaliatory strikes impacted by those. How long do you think this could go on for? How long could it snowball?
Good morning, Ali. Well, look, that's anyone's guess at this point. This is a very dangerous moment for the Middle East and for the world generally. This situation has got very, very bad very, very quickly. And Iran has now struck back at, by my count, 9 countries, all 6 of the Gulf Cooperation Council countries. That's Bahrain, Kuwait, Oman, Qatar, Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, plus Jordan, Iraq and, of course, Israel itself. It's unprecedented, and that just speaks to just how serious the situation is. These US and Israeli strikes targeting and killing Iran's supreme leader himself, the Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, and Iran was always going to strike back in the most severe terms if that kind of action came to pass. And Iran is now throwing the kitchen sink at the United States and its allies, and we can only expect that situation to get far worse before it gets better.
Well, that's right, because we did hear from Donald Trump after the immediate attack, the first attack, who said he was basically making some very serious threats as to if Iran were to embark on retaliatory strikes. And now we know 3 US personnel have been killed. What do you think we can expect to see from Trump's response from here?
Look, I think there's probably going to be a doubling down on both sides before, as I say, this gets any better. Israel and the United States will be determined to do as much damage as they can from the air, to destroy as many possible air defense sites, to destroy as much infrastructure as they can before this war does end up in a ceasefire phase. I mean, all wars end at some point in some kind of ceasefire, some kind of end. Some wars go on a lot longer than others, though. And I mean, you only have to look at the war in Ukraine, which has now been going on for 4 years. I'm not saying that this conflict will go on at this intensity for anything like that length of time, but I think it will go on for longer than many people may be thinking. Donald Trump is talking now about wanting to talk, or he claims that the Iranians want to talk. At this point, I think that might be a sign that Donald Trump realizes that he's got no actual end game here, and that he needs some kind of off-ramp. So, you know, this is the problem when you're just trying to win a war from the air, where you don't have ground troops, where you've set the bar very high at regime change. It's actually going to be very hard for Donald Trump to make that happen. And in effect, what he has done at the moment has simply made the Iranian regime far more aggressive towards the United States and Israel by killing the supreme leader. So, look, everything is on the table at this point, and I think it's a very, very dangerous moment for the world. New Zealand needs to be responding accordingly.
Obviously, having the Supreme Leader killed leaves quite a vacuum there within the country. What does this mean for Iranian locals? Do you think they're any better off? I mean, Iranians here in New Zealand, we saw scenes of celebration on the streets here yesterday, but how do you think it will be for those who are still there on the ground?
Well, look, it's going to be terrifying. If you're in Iran at the moment, you've got airstrikes raining down left, right and centre across Iran. It's not just Tehran. By my count, more than a dozen towns and cities across Iran have been affected by this US and Israeli air campaign. So nowhere is really safe in Iran. That said, there will be a range of views on the fate of the Iranian regime. There will be opposition supporters who are secretly quite pleased about this US-Israeli campaign, hope that it does provide a window for regime change. But I think at this point, there's just no certainty that any of that is going to happen. Donald Trump has called for regime change, but he's not really going to, I think, provide the means for that to happen. We could end up simply with an Iranian regime that is weakened to a degree by these airstrikes. So these airstrikes will be doing real damage to Iran's military infrastructure, but they're going to come out just, I think, furious out of this war at what has happened. We've already seen that the level of anger and fury out of Iran by attacking not just a US airbase or two in the Gulf, but all 6 Gulf states, and attacking airports, ports, hotels, all kinds of facilities across the Gulf region. It is unprecedented. And I know we use that word a lot at the moment in geopolitics, but this really makes what we saw last June pale into insignificance almost, because this is just I just think it's just incredible what we're seeing. And when you just look at the Strait of Hormuz, we've had now 3 oil tankers damaged there in the past 24 hours.
Yes.
What that will do to oil prices when the markets reopen is really it's going to lead to prices probably above the $80 a barrel mark. So it's going to be felt really by New Zealanders at the petrol pumps this week and around the world.
Yes, it will immediately be felt around the world. Thank you so much for joining us on the show this morning, Dr. Jeffrey Miller, geopolitical analyst. Thanks again.
Thanks, Ali.